How's it going, everybody? Fully Baked here. Y'all like fun? What if you didn't? Speaking as a gamer, which is something I hope I never have to say again, I would like to extend a question to everyone out there. Why do we play video games? Rich story? I mean, yeah, that's sometimes why. Interesting graphics? Nah, that's more so an added bonus. At the end of the day, for me at least, there's one reason to play video games: to have fun. If Red Dead Redemption 2 wasn't fun, then I wouldn't care about its admittedly masterful storytelling. It's like good old Reggie said, if it's not fun, why bother? Wise words, but every now and then comes those little things in games that just kind of take you out of it. Not like tutorials, but rather things that bring you down from the fun you might be having. Which is what I wanted to go over today in my top 10 killjoys in video games. So, rules, because I kind of want to get into this one. Rule 1, this is, as always, a personal list. If there's a killjoy that you've experienced that isn't on here, or there's one on here that you don't agree with, then I'm sorry, but it just means we have different opinions. Secondly, these killjoys have to be things in the main game to be on here. If you can beat a game and not encounter these, then it's not eligible. Cotton Alley from Super Meat Boy was going to be on here, but it's post-game, so it's off. Lastly, they don't have to be things set in stone, rather things you can just happen to come across. But if it's in the main game and it's more than likely you're going to experience it at some point, it can be on here. Let's hop into this. Bonus points if you aren't salty by the end. Building your game around the idea of setbacks may not sound like a fruitful endeavor. Things could go wrong at any moment, but the name of the game here is progression. Keep moving forward. Now with all that said, The Escapists, ladies and gents. I kinda love this game, which may have something to do with my love for 16 and 32-bit graphics. But this game is incredibly charming and fun with a ton of gameplay elements that just really work for me. When your entire life revolves around prison escape, the last thing you want is someone getting in your way. Thankfully, if you're skilled enough, no one should ever impede your progress. So the killjoy here? Well, if you're skilled enough, no one can stop you. But I'll be damned if they don't stop talking about how they're going to screw you over. Cell checks as a mechanic makes sense. It's to ensure the player doesn't get too comfortable with their current situation, and it forces them to be more resourceful. Whether it's digging into walls, underground, or going into the vents, the player has to find a way to make it so the guards don't find their stuff. Yes, I understand why it's there. Granted, I also understand why the blue shell is in Mario Kart, but you still want to ask me if I like it? Never in my life do I think I've said, damn it, more at text in a video game. When you see your name pop up, you better pray to God you only have 6 bits of contraband in your desk, or it's a rush to find what you're going to do with the rest. You could risk it in the toilet, or you could just, roll over and die. And in prisons with punishing contraband detectors and camera placements like Jungle Compound, and especially HMP Iron Gate, your cortisol levels are going to be reading so high Vegeta won't even be able to count it. It's not strictly a fun killer so much as it is an annoying mechanic that you never really get adjusted to, but it makes escaping that much more annoying and managing your contraband and movement that much more careful. Combine this with a healthy dose of RNG, having literally no way to tell ahead of roll calls who it's going to be next, and it seems you have a recipe for an unfun experience. Things are only going to get worse from here on in, so let's just bite the bullet and get to the next one. Team Fortress 2. Yeah, it's the Dead Ringer. Of course it's the Dead Ringer. Anyone who's played TF2 can tell you this. Dealing with a Dead Ringer spy is never fun. Actually, dealing with spy in general isn't fun, but the Dead Ringer seems to make this problem a hell of a lot worse. It's tough to call this Yellow Devil an overpowered gadget because it does take getting used to. But here's the thing, so does every other weapon in the game. This doesn't get a pass just because it's not the most inherently intuitive utility in Spy's arsenal. But this all begs the question, what does the Dead Ringer even do? Well, I'm glad you asked. The Dead Ringer is a replacement watch for the French fry. In a trade-off for no more on-command invisibility, this thing requires you to get hit first before it goes off. Some of you out there are probably thinking, wait, that sounds really stupid. Why the hell would I want to get hit first before I can pop invisibility? That sounds really counterintuitive. And while normally you'd be right, there's something this watch does that completely negates that. Sure, you have to get hit, but then you're promptly rewarded with massive damage immunity, effective negation, the speed of a scout on meth while riding out a sugar high, and even though it says in the kill feed you died, we both know that ain't true. You can then go and pull off some dumb trick. Honestly, I don't know what Dead Ringer spies even do because I don't use this thing. Okay, so you know how the kunai kind of forces you to play with relatively significant disadvantage of only having 75 base health, and you can counter this by playing effectively and getting health from backstabs? Yeah, this little thing kind of removes all that challenge. You can kind of just run straight at the enemies, pop a dead ringer, run to a health kit, and then quickly get behind enemy lines before you can spell out Hail Zone. If you like playing Spy with the intent of being a sneaky little bastard who can effectively get behind enemy lines, do not use this. If you like being a person who enjoys TF2, avoid dead ringer spies at all costs, because they will take advantage of this and kill you. In summary, there's a lot of reasons I kinda hate the dead ringer. It's annoying to combat because of how simple the damn thing is to use, not to suggest it takes no skill, but it's kinda stupidly easy, okay? It takes away some of the challenge of playing Spy, but not in the same way things like the cross-map building carry screw you enemy team, or the I'm a strong independent heavy who don't need no medic do. Look, just use the cloak and dagger, or, and here's a much more preferred option, just don't play Spy. I think medic mains are on the decline, just help us out here. Well, it's about that time again. The Countdown YouTuber puts in a generalist pick into a countdown list and makes fun of the fact that people often look for more specific choices by saying something to the general effect of, I know you could probably pin down a specific example, but it applies to a lot of different games, so I'm going with the general pick section of the video. First take. Oh my god, that was awesome. Anyway, have you ever had trouble transitioning from one topic to another in a script? Microtransactions. Can't live with them, want to live without them. Let's be honest with ourselves. With the exception of the companies that push them out, does anyone really like these things? For those out of the loop on what I'm talking about right now, microtransaction, or in-game purchases, are just that. Purchases you make inside of games, but not with the money you make in the respective game, but with real hard-earned cash. No, okay? It's worth noting that I'm not talking about DLC, because that makes sense to me. With things like Fallout New Vegas' Honest Hearts, getting to meet one of the greatest and most well-written video game characters of all time, I think is warranted. Same with The Last of Us Left Behind, getting to learn about Ellie's backstory. Yeah, having to pay for extra content that genuinely improves the game makes sense to me. What doesn't make sense is, to pull a random example out of my ass, paying instead of being rewarded with pride and accomplishment. Loot boxes are the worst offender of microtransactions. If you've ever thought of having to pay for things was bad, how about the possibility that you may not even get what you want? A healthy dose of RNG strikes again. I knew I made him my mortal enemy for a reason. Of course, in games like Overwatch and Call of Duty World War II, the things you get from loot boxes only affect cosmetics and not much on the gameplay front. However, we roll over to God's favorite price gouging playground, Battlefront 2.
You can now purchase a loot crate that allows you to instantaneously win the match.
Fair and balanced gameplay, fellas. You see what I'm getting at, right? Simply put, but not simply fixed, I'm pretty sure that nobody likes microtransactions. There's a ton of miscellaneous examples I could give you, like Supercell's weird gem obsession, removing ads with money, which is kind of funny because you have to pay to stop giving them money, and basically every single modern mobile game in existence. But you get the general idea. Screw microtransactions, and more specifically, EA. Blue power armor for $18. Okay, you know what? Now I'm done. In the achievements video, I had this to say about RNG. Yeah, when I said Destiny's everything, I meant everything. I should actually clue up what RNG actually means for those out of the loop. Basically, it's an acronym which means random number generation. Basically, if something is randomized in a game, you can pin it on RNGs. Quick side note, the document I'm typing this in corrected my spelling of RNGs. I didn't. Apparently that's a word in the dictionary. You know what? I love this job. The reason a lot of people hate RNG is because people like to be in control, and having something taken away from them simply because of a dice roll sucks. However, in a lot of games, the thing it's taking away often isn't super detrimental to the game itself, like, as I mentioned, Game & Watch's hammer and CSGO's bullet trajectory. When your entire game is chock full and practically based on RNG, prepare yourself for the Reddit crapstorm. The reason I think Destiny is good but not great kinda heavily relies on this one fact. Getting loot from doing quests, you better hope the right quest is in rotation. If you plan on getting some loot from stuff like team strikes or gambits, spin that wheel. Enemy drops, cryptic oceans, shop rotations. Spin the wheel! Of course, the entire game isn't completely random, but a lot of the important parts of it are. The main reason Destiny's RNG stings much more to me personally is because of how much it can screw you over. Destiny is very black and white about its RNG. If you've got the rarer and more powerful guns, you're gonna win the fight. Oh, it's time for the Terraria comparison. This is why I love Terraria so much, because while it may be tough, you can use anything to kill any boss. But in Destiny, someone using the Wardcliff coil is gonna beat someone using practically anything else. Not because they're better at the game than them and it worked for the better weapon, not even because the gun the other person has was bad, merely because they were handed the better option on a silver platter, which is just really unfortunate. This happens frequently throughout Destiny 2, and it overall kills the fun of what should be a great game. This all being said, my two favorite weapons in Destiny 2 are Sturm and Trang because 1, they aren't random, you just have to beat a side mission to get them. And 2, they're just really fun to use in conjecture with one another. No game is complete without RNG. But in Destiny's case, it's less like the removal of it would make the game incomplete. It would turn the game into Visual's freaking parents faster than the R6 fans are gonna type hate comments because I made an allusion to Visual's parents. My bad. Not my fault y'all's game is dying though. I kind of found the last entry difficult to write because it didn't actually have a lot to say about it. Yeah, this is not the case with our next entry.
You were never one of us.
Uh-oh. Hey, Doom gets its own segment in the top 10 video. It's almost like we're watching Fully Baked. Well, screw you. I love these games. However, I don't love everything about them. The culmination of this fact comes personally in the form of, admittedly, the coolest enemy in Doom Eternal, the Marauder. Oh my god, he's so cool. His voice is awesome. His freaking awesome Crucible accent. Wow, I'm already dead, huh? The Marauder is something you feel one of two ways on. You either don't feel anything towards it, or you hate it. As you can tell, I'm not exactly peaches and cream for this guy, but what makes him a Killjoy? I'm glad you asked. See, if you love the Doom remakes for their high-octane action and blood-pumping movement, you might not like the Marauder because they feel weirdly hellbent on stopping that whole movement thing you've probably got going on. Let me break it down real simple for you. If you get too close, he'll shoot you with a shotgun, dealing a good chunk of damage. If you get too far, he'll send a spirit dog after you, both dealing damage and slowing you down, meaning he can then get close to you and hit you with the shotgun. Do you manage to surpass all odds and actually maintain a medium distance from the guy? Congrats. You've now got to hit him mid-attack as if your palms weren't sweaty enough. It's all good. The insta-kill weapons like the Crucible Blade, BFG, and Unmaker should do the trick, and yeah, they aren't doing a freaking thing. Yep, that would appear to be the case. I feel like I'm trying to kill a fly. No, not just any fly, this one. The Marauder is a really annoying enemy to fight with such minimal hit frame data that it's much more preferable to just run away from them most of the time. I still think it's worth pointing out I like their design and their voices. That's cool. As we move up the list from here on in, obviously things are going to kill more joy. The most notable of all, these Killjoys will actually start to completely ruin the games they come from. With this in mind, I'm not saying sinking a lot of time into a game to be prepared for something is bad. I'm saying when you can find like 10 tutorials on the best place to grind for XP, you've probably worked your game up a bit. In my favorite final boss scene video, I said I was going to do a full-length Octopath travel review, but since I'm still writing that, I haven't started writing it yet, I figured I'd take this opportunity to highlight one of the most glaring issues of the game. It was initially going to be the story, but two things prevented me from highlighting that. The first one being that it doesn't really directly impact gameplay, so I can easily avoid it when I play. The second reason is I still don't really know what's going on in this game, so I'm gonna just avoid that for now. I eventually landed on the incessant grinding, and I mean that in every sense of the word. The way Octopath is laid out is so blatantly favorable of grinding that it makes me think that it was intentional addition by the developers. So what separates Octopath's grinding from other games? Well, put simply, you just don't get enough experience from battles. More extensively, here's what it means for the rest of the game. If you want to do it effectively, then you're not doing it effectively. It sounds like a joke, which it is, but I'm partially serious. Octopath is pretty subtle about this fact, but you actually have 8 party members in this game. You can only have up to 4 in your party at a time, which already presents an issue. The other members don't level up, but I wouldn't worry about it. You can just use one team for the whole game. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, every single character has their own individual story that you can only access if they're in your party. So you don't get enough experience already, and you have to level up underpowered party members to properly access their stories and fully complete the game. There is no winning here, and it's incredibly annoying to deal with. I don't even have a joke here, it's just genuinely sad to see this game I had such high hopes for be like this.
You were the chosen one!
Huh, I guess I did have one in me. As humans, we're always going to be a little scared of the threat of control. The idea that maybe the universe is dictated by code and we truly have no free will at all. It's something that keeps me up at night. But we're also scared of what we know could control us. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it seems the uprising already came. The call doesn't escape me today. I love Cuphead, and as it stands, it's in my top 5 favorite games of all time. But you look into that robot's eyes and you tell me there's a god. Normally I'd hold this spot for Mr. Not Even the Damn Roundabout Can Save You Now, but on my most recent playthrough, I found Call was giving me a much more unfun time than Grim. Looking back, I was never fond of this boss fight, but now I've got ample opportunity to explain what I hate about this android annoyance. First, look at that phase list. That is not how a good boss should be segmented. It's heavily one-sided, but what's funny to me is that all of his phases are unfun as well. Okay, the first one is admittedly enjoyable enough. The robot has 3 pretty specific weak points, and taking out a body part replaces the attack of that part. It's relatively fun, but this first phase isn't what lands it on this list. The second phase of this fight involves the robot's head looping around the screen. My problem with this phase isn't just that it goes back and forth, no. It's that at no real point during the cycle do you get a good chance to actually hit him. In addition to this, he spawns these really annoying skull bombs that follow you, and the optimal strategy here is just to loop and have them collide into each other. But now we get to the worst part of this fight. Phase 3. In Phase 3, Call himself emerges from the robot's upside-down head and spews crystal shards at you like he's Kirby on the N64. If the blue crystal is out, he fires 6 crystals at a time, and if his red crystal is out, he fires 8. As you dodge, walls will come up or down from the screen, meaning you have to be constantly on the move. Great, now just dodge this incredibly annoying attack for a solid minute with next to no variation in how you approach it, and you'll win. Look, this entry is really just an excuse to complain about Call. The crystals move too fast for comfort, the walls close in very early, so it feels really unfair to be dealing with those on top of the crystals. There's no ideal place to be because of the walls and the crystals to actually shoot at Call, which only serves to extend this already annoying phase. His constant laughing is really annoying because of the crystals. You probably won't be pulling off any supers. Nothing in this final phase works for me. You see, this is why no one likes Germans. You guys let this happen. Similar to the Octopath Traveler entry, this Killjoy is a mechanic that plagues the entire game it's attached to. Fortunately, this is the last entry that does something like this, but, and I'm being completely serious here, no game has taken a piss in my perfectly fine bowl of gaming cornflakes than Ben and Ed and its ragdolling. Hey, ragdolling is a primary mechanic in Ben and Ed. Are you saying it's a bad game? Yes, actually, I am. It's such an inherently infuriating mechanic to have included in a 3D platformer, especially this one because of other mechanics that feed into this one's annoyance. I'm not saying ragdolling is an inherently bad mechanic. It can actually enhance the enjoyment in some cases, but this is a precision-based 3D platformer. The mark isn't only missed here, we're turned around from the target. But there's more in Ben and Ed that managed to make ragdolling its most annoying mechanic. It's worth pointing out that ragdolling doesn't occur anywhere, but it can happen anytime you hit a surface that isn't ground. Nowhere is this more apparently a problem than in the second boss fight. As you jump up these relatively small platforms, these spinning things around the torso can and will hit you, causing you to ragdoll and possibly fall. No, not possibly fall, you will fall here, repeatedly. But this pales in comparison to the biggest problem I have with the ragdolling, that being the limb system. One of the most unique things about Ben and Ed is that when you get hit by a saw or a laser, you actually lose your limbs. This causes you to move slower, jump a shorter distance, etc. And because of the incessant ragdolling, you're likely going to run into more obstacles, causing limb loss, meaning the game gets needlessly hard. It likely wouldn't be so bad if getting hit caused you to die instantly, because it would mean I wouldn't have to sit here and stare at my failure like a disappointed parent. I'm just so baffled by this. It caused me to genuinely rage quit multiple times. Remember in the Octopath entry when I said I didn't have any jokes and then I made one? Yeah, I'm not doing that here. I genuinely have nothing to say. You probably knew this was coming. Everyone and their mother has ranted about the Big the Cat missions in Sonic Adventure, so I've got nothing new to add to this argument. The controls are unintuitive, the voice acting is off-putting, the music can be grating, it somehow feels both too short and too long, it's just generally bad. What, did you think I had something interesting to add to this discussion? No, Big the Cat missions just suck. Everyone knows this. Let's move on to the far more interesting entry. God, this one's gonna suck. Every single entry leading up to this one, I can expect the community to get mad at me. I think maybe with the exception of Ben and Ed and Octopath, because the communities there are pretty cool. But with this one, there's no saving me. In my personal opinion, the single worst video game Killjoy is Danganronpa V3's Chapter 6. Now you see what I'm getting at. But how can this one be a Killjoy if it's at the end of the game? Well, games can end poorly and leave a sour taste in the mouth of the player, which is exactly what happened here. And just to be clear, I'm not talking about the final trial. I'm talking about the entirety of Chapter 6. So let's start with some already pretty substantial negatives. First of all, there are basically no interesting characters left. The two most interesting characters in the entire game both perished in the last chapter, so they make do with the remaining cast? No. They really don't. Everyone remaining is fairly stoic and doesn't display a great range of emotion. Next, Kibo is going on a rampage around the school and is leaving rubble everywhere. To clear it, you need a certain amount of characters with you to unlock certain areas, but here's the thing. There's absolutely no exploration here. You're railroaded because the only notable places you're supposed to go are blocked by the exact number of people you'll need. And even then, exploration is heavily de-incentivized because there's a timer. Hey game designers, if your game genre is called a visual novel, how about you don't remove the novel portion of that, okay? So the pre-trial is forced and unfun. Well, how's the trial? Well, for starters, it's 4 hours long. The longest trial in the entire series. I'm not hyperbolic in any sense when I say this, but I could genuinely beat the entire first chapter of the game using only voice commands before I could beat this. And I did over at fullybaked.tv, which you guys should go check out, I'm just saying. But how's the trial? Well, it comes with the standard BS last trial mechanics that the series always does, like freeing your friends from despair in the first game, the weird Izuru sequence in the second, and avoiding the button in UDG. But like all DR games, the final trial always comes with a twist, and what is it this time? Nothing was real. Well, that's slightly over-exaggerating it. The game you're playing is actually a TV show in universe, and everyone has had their memory wiped and is forced to play the killing game. Everyone had their memories preloaded by Samugi, which essentially means that any cool things that the characters did seemingly independently, like the virtual world and especially Kokichi's awesome villain arc in Chapter 5, was completely involuntary. Also, I hope you like twists that mean literally nothing, because that's exactly what this is. Danganronpa is now fictional, in-universe, but spoiler alert, we're playing it as a game, so being told that nothing is real doesn't add anything to this plot. Why not continue or conclude anything with the Future Foundation? It would make for a much more conclusive finale. This could also discredit the previous games a small bit by implying that none of it was real, even in-universe. Either way, I digress because this twist really just pisses me off. Throw in some BS mini-games like the final multi-argument, massive setbacks if you screw up at all, a really weird, unsatisfying villain in the form of Samugi who can't hold a candle to Junko, and especially Monica, who is the best DR villain, #FightMe, and an ambiguous ending, and you've got a Killjoy so damning that it may as well be a crime. Here's the funny thing though. The other games didn't have particularly good endings anyway. The first game felt like an actual mystery was being uncovered, but it still felt very monologue-y. The second game is incredibly over the top and doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it's still pretty fun. UDG has an actually pretty good ending, with a substantial final boss and a through line for Kamaru and Toko. V3 just left me empty and upset, and it makes it easily my personal biggest video game killjoy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. God bless. Hey everyone, before the video ends, I just wanted to say, this is not meant to garner sympathy or anything, but this video has been in the works for around 8 months. From inception to writing to editing, this video has been one of the longest in limbo videos I've ever done. And I'm finally happy to just have it off my chest. So thank you for sticking around this long and for sticking with this channel for those 8 months. It means a lot to me that you would watch even this far to the video. And I just wanted to say thank you very much. This video is just a huge step forward for me in my mental health journey. And I know it's sappy to say stuff like that, but it honestly is. So once again, thank you, and I hope you have a nice day.